Let's dive into the world of New Edition. They had this crazy journey from, like, starting out all the way to, becoming these huge R&B and pop icons.
They're fascinating, truly.
Oh, for sure. I think anyone listening is in for a real treat. We're using this biography for this deep dive called New Edition, a journey through music and brotherhood. And let me tell you, it's full of surprises.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, for starters, did you know Bobby Brown was actually voted out of the group at one point?
Whoa, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. And then, get this, the other guys, they actually find success on their own, but then eventually they all reunite.
Wow, what a story.
We're going to get into all that, the drama, how their music changed over the years, and of course that legendary brotherhood.
It's a story that really shows how much R&B changed over the years. They weren't like just going with the flow, you know? They were changing it, pushing things forward, and inspiring tons of artists. What's really cool to me is how their own personal journeys all kind of connect to the bigger trends in music at the time.
Okay, so picture this. We're in Roxbury, Massachusetts, back in the 70s. 5 young guys, all full of dreams. They get together and form New Edition in 1978. Now, fast forward a few years, and they're signing with Maurice Starr. And by 1983, Candy Girl is a huge hit. It's amazing how fast they became famous.
Yeah, their energy was like totally contagious, and those harmonies they had, pure magic. But it wasn't just that they were talented. They brought this like sweetness and innocence to R&B that a lot of people connected with, especially young girls. You got to think about what was happening back then. Disco was kind of fading away, and people were really looking for something new, something real. New Edition, they were perfect for that. They like started a whole new era.
So here's New Edition. On top of the world, but then things get kind of interesting.
Yep.
Let's talk Bobby Brown. Super talented, charismatic, but also, as the book says, a bit of a rebel. So why did he leave the group in '86? Was it actually good for everyone involved, like some people say?
Yeah, the book goes into all the tension that was building up in the group. Bobby, he really wanted to try a different kind of sound, and yeah, there were definitely personality clashes. Now, was leaving the best thing? It's hard to say for sure. It definitely hurt some feelings back then. But when you look back, it did let both Bobby and New Edition grow in ways they might not have if he stayed.
That makes sense. And Bobby's solo career just blew up after he left. His 1988 album, Don't Be Cruel, became a classic, like, instantly, with hits like My Prerogative and Every Little Step. He really owned that whole bad boy image.
He totally did. And his sound, it was a huge part of what defined the New Jack Swing era. For anyone who doesn't know, New Jack Swing was this amazing mix of R&B, hip-hop, and pop, you know, with those strong drum beats and super catchy melodies, lots of synths and drum machines layered with, like, soulful vocals. Bobby's music, along with guys like Teddy Riley and Keith Sweat, really made this sound mainstream. So him leaving New Edition, it let him go for this edgier, more aggressive style that probably wouldn't have worked with the group's image at that time.
So while Bobby's out there making waves on his own, New Edition decides to bring in Johnny Gill. And Johnny already had a pretty successful solo career going on himself. He even worked with Stacey Lattisaw on that hit Perfect Combination. What was it like when Johnny joined? Did he change the group dynamic? Was it a smooth transition?
It really was. Johnny joining added a whole new dimension to their sound. He had this incredible vocal range, and his style was so smooth and soulful. It was a great contrast with Ralph Tresvant's sweeter vocals. You can really hear how they evolved on their 1988 album Heartbreak. Songs like Can You Stand the Rain and If It Isn't Love really show how much they'd grown both in their voices and their music.
And then there's Belle Biv DeVoe. Ronnie, Ricky, and Mike branch out in 1990 with Poison. That album was massive. Poison, Do Meat, they were everywhere, all over MTV. What made Belle Biv DeVoe's sound so different? What made it so groundbreaking?
Poison wasn't just a song. It was like this whole cultural phenomenon. It hit #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, stayed at the top of the R&B charts for weeks. And, I mean, you couldn't escape the music video on MTV. They even had their own dance move, the Poison dance. Their sound was raw, edgy. It was just the perfect mix of hip-hop beats and those catchy R&B melodies.
It's wild how, within New Edition, there was this constant drive to try new things, to always be evolving. You've got Bobby finding all this solo success, New Edition figuring out their sound with Johnny, and then Belle Biv DeVoe just blowing up with this totally new sound.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how do they all stay connected through all that?
That's the thing, right? They were all on these different paths, but there was always this connection, this shared history that seemed to pull them back together.
Yeah, it's like they had this creative energy that wouldn't quit, even when they were apart.
Yeah.
And speaking of doing their own thing, we can't forget about Ralph Tresvant and Johnny Gill. They were both finding success as solo artists, while Belle Biv DeVoe was taking off.
Right. Ralph, with that silky smooth voice of his, had hits like Sensitivity and Stone Cold
Those
Gentleman.
are classics.
And Johnny, man, he just kept those hits coming, like Rub You the Right Way and My. It's really something how each of them found their own place in the world of R&B.
It shows you how talented they all were, how versatile. But with some groups, when members go solo, that's it. It's all rivalry, competition.
Yeah.
But with New Edition, they seem to genuinely support each other's success.
The book actually talks about how they'd give each other advice on music, help each other out, even work together on projects.
Really?
Yeah. For example, did you know that Bobby Brown actually co-wrote and produced that song My for Johnny Gill?
No way. That's awesome. It shows that even though they were all off doing their own thing, that connection, that brotherhood, it never went away.
Exactly. It's not just some feel-good story. It really shows how mature they were, how much respect they had for each other's art. They understood that by helping each other out, they were making New Edition's legacy even stronger.
Okay, so we've got these 5 guys all killing it on their own. But then, the reunion. After all the solo stuff, all 6 of them come back together in the late 90s. Their 1996 album, Home Again, it debuted at #1. But was it actually a really good album, or were people just excited about the nostalgia?
That's a good question. Home Again was definitely a huge commercial success, but, the critics had mixed feelings. Some of them thought it wasn't as new and edgy as their older stuff, while others really liked the more mature sound and that undeniable chemistry between the members. And it's important to remember that the music scene had changed a lot since their last album together. Hip-hop and gangster rap were super popular, and R&B was becoming more streetwise.
So New Edition comes back with this more mature sound, maybe even a bit nostalgic, and the fans go wild. It seems like they tapped into that feeling of wanting something familiar, something that reminds people of, simpler times. Hit Me Off is a great example. That song still makes me want to dance every time I hear it.
For sure. And we can't forget how emotional that reunion was. Seeing all 6 of them back together on stage, performing those classic hits, it was huge for fans who had grown up with their music. It was like a family getting back together after being apart for years.
Speaking of their impact, how do you think New Edition influenced the boy bands that came after them? Groups like Boys in Second, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, they all seem to have borrowed from what New Edition did.
You can definitely see the similarities. New Edition, they were the ones who started that mix of smooth vocals, those tight harmonies, the synchronized dance moves, and that crossover appeal that got both guys and girls into their music. They showed these later groups that you could be super successful without being edgy or controversial and still appeal to a huge audience. And a lot of those later boy bands have actually said that New Edition was a major influence on them.
And then there's the Bit Petit miniseries from a few years back, the New Edition story, which introduced their music and their story to a whole new generation. What do you think that did for their legacy?
The New Edition story wasn't just a mini-series. It was this big cultural moment. It got people interested in their music again, started conversations about their struggles and triumphs, and I think it really cemented their place in music history. It made them more human, showed them as people who weren't perfect, but who overcame a lot of tough stuff to achieve success. And it reminded everyone how powerful their music is, how much it still appeals to people today.
And even now, after all these years, they're all still active in the music world. Bobby Brown's done reality TV, Johnny Gill's still putting out hits, Ralph Tresvant's performing, and Bill Biv DeVoe even gets back together sometimes. What does that say about their staying power?
I think it shows how talented each of them is, how resilient they are, and how they've been able to change and adapt as the music world has changed. They haven't just sat back and relaxed. They've kept creating, trying new things, and connecting with audiences in new ways.
So when you look back at their journey, what stands out to you the most about their impact in their story? What makes New Edition so unique?
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about all they've done, both on their own and as a group.
Totally. From those early days in Roxbury to becoming R&B legends, it's like their story has everything.
It really does. For me, it's their honesty, They never tried to hide their struggles, their issues, even the times they fought with each other.
Right.
It's all right there in their music, the interviews, even in that Bet miniseries.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes them so relatable, that vulnerability.
It makes you feel like you really know them.
They weren't like those, perfect, polished pop stars.
Right.
They were real people with real problems, and that connected with people.
That's so true. They let us see their imperfections, their humanity. And I think that's what made their successes even more powerful. It wasn't just singing about love and heartbreak. It was like They were living it.
Right.
And musically, they never just stayed the same. They went from that like bubblegum pop to mature R&B, embraced new jack swing, and like each member found their own thing.
Their musical journey is really interesting when you think about how they dealt with all those changes in R&B.
Yeah.
From working with guys like Maurice Starr to collaborating with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they were always pushing the boundaries, trying new sounds, bringing in elements of hip-hop and funk.
I see what you mean.
And even when they went solo, they took all those influences with them.
It's like they were always changing things up, but still keeping their core sound.
It makes you wonder, how many other groups have done that? Found that kind of success while going solo and staying together as a group?
Not many, that's for sure. The Temptations, the Jackson 5, Destiny's Child, they all went through similar stuff, but New Edition's story, it just has this staying power, this resilience that makes them different. They managed to survive all the craziness of the music industry and still keep that bond, something that went beyond the fame and the money.
Yeah. Their story is like a guide to success, but it also shows you that success comes with challenges. They have their disagreements, breakups, personal struggles. But through it all, they never completely forgot about that brotherhood, that shared history that brought them together in the first place.
Right.
So connecting this back to you, the listener, what can we take away from New Edition's journey? Maybe it's about, being yourself while also holding on to those important relationships, trying new things creatively while staying true to your roots. Their story reminds us that success is often a team effort, and that even when things get tough, those bonds of brotherhood, of friendship, can give you the strength to overcome anything.
Absolutely. Their journey shows us that talent is key, but being able to bounce back, adapt, and having strong relationships, those are just as important, especially in a tough industry like music.
For sure.
So if you're just getting into New Edition, I'd say don't just listen to the hits. Check out those solo projects. Really explore how their music changed over time. You'll find a depth and richness that goes way beyond just nostalgia.
I totally agree. Each era of their music has something unique, something special to offer. But in the end, it all comes back to that core brotherhood and their undeniable talent. New Edition's story is a testament to the power of music, friendship, and chasing your dreams.
Well, that was a fascinating trip through the world of New Edition. We covered their rise to fame, their solo careers, that awesome reunion, and their impact on music and culture, which is still felt today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the music and brotherhood of New Edition.